Wayne, I was wondering, would you think that the market would have rallied even more today? Because you've got the DAX over in Germany up by 3.8%, the FTSE up by 2%.
The market hasn't fallen as much. I mean, we're 1,000 points away from an all-time record high. It's only 3%. So our market hasn't been nearly as badly hit as the European market. So it's quite natural that they would go up more than our market. But the shares in our market that have been hit, like the European markets, are our resource shares. And obviously, the ones that got hit the most with the bad news will go up the most with good news.
And your BHP Billiton 4.1%.
I mean, strong rally in these shares. But we've discussed this so many times.
Yeah.
These shares are 7 PE shares. These are seriously cheap shares. Doesn't mean they go up if there's bad news. But they're discounting a lot of bad news already in the price. But the real key for our resource shares is not Europe, it's China. That is the real key.
We were talking about the trade deficit earlier, and of
Yes.
course China comes into that whole equation.
Yes.
And you were saying that the biggest problem that South Africa has
Correct.
right now is the trade
Okay.
current account deficit.
Yeah,
basically.
let me explain this, because when people listen to current account deficit, it just sounds like economic mumbo
Jargon,
jumbo.
yeah.
It's just jargon. What it is, simplistically, if you earn 10,000 Rand a month, but you spend 11,000 Rand a month, you've got a problem. Now that's South Africa. As a country, we import more than we export. So the same as for an individual, that 1,000 Rand you short every month, you've got to borrow it from somewhere. South Africa borrows this from overseas people via investment into South Africa, our bond market, our equity market, etc., etc. Now that's great for South Africa at the moment because people like us. Our growth is 3%, Europe's in recession, US is 1.5%, 2%. We're a commodity exporter. And that's on the back of China. China drives our commodity exports and our commodity exports prices, and China is the economy that's growing. So people are quite happy to fund our current account deficit at the moment. And that enables the government to run a deficit. That enables the government to pay grants. It enables the government's capital expenditure program. It enables capital for the banks.
And when we talk about capital expenditure, we're talking about, we're talking about Transnet, we're talking about Eskom, we're talking about all the public organizations.
The ability to fund this current account deficit, our country will go into a severe recession because we are not self-funding, we are spending more than what we earn. That's why the government must be very careful in their policy conference. They're not in a good negotiating position because they rely heavily on this global capital. So, and if China stumbles or China falls, we are in deep trouble here. Because we do not.
So how do you position your portfolio? I mean, if you're looking at a current account deficit, that is the biggest problem
lucky enough,
right
we
now.
can buy shares on our stock market that have got very little to do with South Africa, i.e. the resource shares.
And i.e. SAB Miller,
there's lots.
A lot of African.
So I mean, we mustn't be too negative about this, but people must not dismiss what this 5% current account deficit means. In essence, the true answer to South Africa is somehow we have got to manufacture and export more and import less. But how you get to that position is an extremely difficult task.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues that you have to look at in that basket. Let's talk about some of the stocks that have been in the news today. Yes. Telkom, there's been some commentary from the ANC policy conference, an unnamed ANC source saying that Telkom should be nationalized.
Oh, there's hot
do we buy into that?
This story has been in and out the news for so long. Look, quite frankly, why should the government look? You must always be very careful with all politicians when they talk. They talk to their constituencies. That's not necessarily what they do, and
it's an unnamed source, so we don't even know who said it right now.
So I mean, dismiss that because you know the source, and this is not unique to South African politicians. So dismiss that because you know the source. Have they got lots of money? No. So why should they nationalize? Secondly, can they get Telkom to do what they wanted to do without nationalization? The answer is yes, and a clear example of that was Telkom had this KT deal, Korea Telecom's deal, lined up. The government in cabinet decided to can it, not the shareholders in a board meeting. So it just shows you, essentially, the government runs Telkom. So why nationalize something you already run? It just is not logical. So that's just politics. I would dismiss that totally.
Dismiss that comment. But we have had one set of results coming out today. Of course, a smaller company, Udeco. Just reading the numbers there.
Company.
Operating profit up by 21% to 181 million rand. Headline earnings per share up by 17%. Dividend declared 19%
This
up.
is a very good company.
What do you like about Udeco?
It's a small company at a reasonable price that is really not this. There's a couple. There's Udeco, there's Invicta, There's a couple of these little companies seem to be light industrial orientated companies, quite exposed to the mining side, so maybe a little bit of risk on that side, but they seem to produce solid results on a consistent basis, and the share price looks reasonably valued.
Even today, after a 7.6% rally.
You can see the chart there. You know, this is a highly illiquid share. I mean, this is a highly illiquid share, and whenever you buy or sell illiquid shares, you know there's always a risk associated. But even after today's run, it actually looks quite reasonable still. I mean, we own a lot of Udeco.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, and of course, as you say, you own the stock, so you're clearly buying into the growth story going forward.
We can't buy any more because there's just no liquidity.
Well, yeah, that is always the big problem that plagues the smaller cap stocks. That was Wayne McCurrie from Momentum Asset Management.